Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long was 1975. A using girls on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Long Boys Bros 1975.
Hey YouTube, Lumboys Post 1975. You read the title. I want to talk about the 2014 Sainsburys Christmas commercial and the sort of massive amount of, well, you know, a lot of people are very, myself included, are very positive about this and think it was a very well executed, polished, produced commercial that ultimately has heart and encourages people to donate to a charity while, you know, raising awareness of an event, what it is, you know, the 100-year anniversary of this, that, you know, I guess the X Factor generation may not know anything about. But this 2014 commercial, you know, marking the 100th anniversary of the First World War, and obviously it's Christmas, so they pick on one particular event, which is this unofficial truce that began to bury the dead between the obviously the Germans and the English, and turned into something that is literally a one-off in warfare, you know, that's never happened again, and boggles the mind that it did, but ultimately restores your faith in humanity. And that would be this, you know, this truce where on Christmas Day the Germans and the English came out of their trenches during this ceasefire, this unofficial ceasefire, greeted each other, exchanged gifts, and had a game of football, which I think is probably its most, you know, sort of endearing and what it's most known for. Now, I understand, you know, I am a cynic and I'm not naive, and I understand that, you know, particularly this time of year with all the supermarkets pulling out the big guns to do their sentimental commercials that I believe John Lewis started a few years ago, and John Lewis is one this, is it John Lewis this year with the kid and his penguin, amazingly polished commercial, you know, and it is, you know, touching. I think it was I don't know, in £5 million, which you could argue is obscene for, you know, providing a Christmas message but ultimately advertising your supermarket. So I understand why people are cynical about the Sainsbury's one, but, you know, as I said, maybe I'm naive and I took from it what I think they intended. Excuse me. Anyway, for those of you outside the United Kingdom, I'll put a link to it. I've linked it on my Facebook before, and I know a few people in North America have managed to watch it, so hopefully you can wherever you are in the world, but I'll link it in the doohickey down below. So basically it's Christmas Eve, you know, on the front line of you know, the First World War, in the trenches, and there's this, you know, there's a lulling in the guns and stuff, and basically they hear the Germans. Now, it's argued about how accurate, you know, we hear events of this to be true, because so many different people told so many different variations of the story, but, you know, it happened, and that only makes sense that there are so many variants upon the story because different individuals wrote about this, and, you know, and there is, you know, photographed documentary about that, but I'm not arguing the fact that whether this existed or not. So, you know, it's Christmas Eve, it's you know, nightfall, the guns fall silent, and you hear the German trench singing, obviously in German, that version of Silent Night. And then in the Tommy's trench, they start to join in. Now, if my knowledge of history is accurate, and if history is accurate within itself, they exchanged pleasantries over the trenches, because you've got to remember, this was a war that was basically, they were fighting to a standstill. It took so much to progress so little, and so they were, you know, pretty close together, and so they exchanged pleasantries like good singing, you know, good singing, stuff like that. And then apparently they started chucking, this isn't in the commercial, but we'll get to that, pleasantries. They started chucking presents over, you know, the top of the trenches, sort of chocolate, tobacco, wine and things like that. And eventually it led into two brave, you know, well, more than two brave people stepping out of their trenches and walking into no man's land and greeting each other, which must have been absolutely terrifying for the people that did it, because there are some accounts, well, you know, it happened when this, you know, unofficial truce began, that in some areas of the trenches and the front line, individuals from both sides would step up and then be gunned down by the opposite side. Now, so, and obviously it's well known for the fact that an impromptu game of football broke out between, you know, the Germans and the Tommies. And, you know, again, people were up close and personal, talking about loved ones, talking about back home, exchanging gifts, you know, understanding that within this absolute, excuse me, bloody sardines, hellhole of a situation, ultimately something like Christmas made people realize that, you know, because essentially you got to remember, you know, they're pawns of their generals. These people have to fight, they're forced to fight, you know. That does not mean that they would necessarily hate the individual, and at least to me, this is what I take from this unofficial truce, that this was one moment that just went, you know, and it took something like Christmas just to go, you know, this has happened and this will happen, but can we just have our one moment of sort of sanctuary from this horrific nightmare that is going on around us? So anyway, to the Sainsbury's commercial, as I said, very well produced, very polished. I understand what people would just say, how dare they use a setting like this to promote their supermarket and sell products, but I don't look at it that way, because if you watch the commercial, you know, it starts with the singing, and then a Tommy comes out, and then a German private comes out, and they walk, you know, hands up into no man's land, you know, all nervous and pensive. The German private telling his side to, you know, stand down, he doesn't have any weapons. On the Tommy side, his general says, what are you doing, what are you doing, don't do it, man, when he walks up. And I guess this, you know, this generally reflects the curiosity of the individuals at the time who, you know, dared to do this. So they walk forward, they greet each other, they understand that they're exactly the same. Then the others walk up, greet each other, they you know, pictures are taken, gifts are given, exchanged, the football game breaks out, and then in the commercial the gunfire starts, they look at each other, a somber note is struck, and then they walk away. And the Tommy hands back to the German private sorry, his jacket. Now what I forgot to mention was at the start of the commercial, before you hear the singing, the Tommy private sat there reading a letter from his loved one back home, and he breaks out a bar of chocolate. Now this is the point I want to make. It's a bar of chocolate Sainsbury's sold way back in the day, obviously in 1914. So there is no branding or supermarket logo placement upon this bar of chocolates, you know. And the one that they're selling in their stores now is exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. I'm sure on the back, because of law these days, when it gives nutritional information and copyright information, there will be Sainsbury's. But on the front, there is not. And that's when this event happens. So when it comes back to the end of this unofficial truce, and they're walking away, and he hands the German private his jacket, and they go back to their trenches. The Tommy sits in his trench, and he opens up his tin and eats stale, fucking disgusting, dried, you know, war rations. And then it cuts to the German private, and he sticks his hand in his jacket pocket, and he's like, what? And he pulls out this bar of chocolate, and he looks at it, and there's that moment of realization on his face, and then no Sainsbury's pops up on the top of the screen. It just pops up and just says Christmas is for sharing. And I looked at it, again, you can call me naive and simpleton, I looked at it like this. I thought it was a wonderful commercial to, you know, highlight and drum in that it's the 100th anniversary of the war, that we should all be respectful to both sides, and that, you know, the incredible amount of people that were lost. But also it's kind of, you know, thrusting home that Christmas is one of the few things, whether you're religious or not, that can unite people in a way that overcomes such, you know, incredible odds and such horrific things going on in your immediate environment. That's how I took it. It does not say go to Sainsbury's. Yes, it is technically marketing. It does not say you must go to Sainsbury's, you must buy this bar of chocolate. I just think, you know, there's charity at the heart of this video. It has a really good message, and when people say, oh, you shouldn't take a, you know, a TV commercial to do this, do you know what, call me shallow, but anything that reinforces our memories and the fact that we should respect and, you know, and tribute these individuals, these brave individuals from back then, albeit a TV commercial, is good. Because, you know, X Factor generation, I think, seriously, you know, I don't even know if we're allowed to teach it in schools anymore because of political correctness. So I took it for what it was, which I thought it was a very nice sentiment. It wasn't shoving Sainsbury's, you know, down your throat. It's not going to make me go to Sainsbury's. I will go and buy the bar of chocolate to send to my girlfriend. I don't even eat chocolate, but I'll buy it for one reason. All the profit from the bar of chocolate goes to the British Legion. The British Legion are the people who look after soldiers when they come back to this country from wars. You know, it shouldn't take charity to do these things, but ultimately, you know, governments send individuals, not necessarily in this case World War One. So governments send their soldiers to fight their dirty political wars, you know, then don't look after them, at least in the UK, when they come back. And that's what the British Legion does. So I just thought it was a nice statement. There was a heartfelt sort of purpose within it, and the whole video was kind of focused on about, you know, basically, you're the same as I'm the same as you, regardless of the situation we're put in, you know. I just saw a good message. Again, you know, you can laugh at me and call me the eternal sort of positive person, but I just saw a good message. And I think the fact that it's raising money, as I said, you shouldn't have to rely on charity for things like this. I don't see anything wrong with it. Should it take a commercial to do these things? No, it shouldn't. You know, that's wrong. We should want to do it anyway, but some people won't, and this is what takes those people to, you know, suddenly wake up and go, oh my god, this happened, or suddenly wake up and just go, I should do something nice and buy this bar of chocolate. Yes, you could donate to a charity, you could donate to them directly, but some people simply won't do that because that's just, you know, the modern world. So that's why I like this commercial. I think it was a well shot, well produced, you know, poignant and touching commercial that ultimately has heart at its sense. And for all the fact that, you know, we live in a modern capitalist world and everyone is like, you know, cynical about, you know, oh, supermarkets this and companies that and everyone, and there's a bloke in marketing called Bob who wrote this and he's rubbing his hands and he got his 25k bonus or whatever. I think its heart's in its right place. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful message, and I can see why, but I don't agree with why it's getting so much shit. Anyway, I'll put a link, as I said, to it in the doohickey down below. I'd love to know what you think of the commercial and where you stand upon it, and is it a good thing that, are they raising awareness? Is it a good thing that they are ultimately doing something that people who wouldn't necessarily give the charity will do so, having watched this? Anyway, just my thoughts. You know, I'm not particularly deep or anything like that. Kind of got away from me a lot, but yeah, I don't really understand the negativity towards this commercial. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.